Hi, it's RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. How's everybody doing? Happy Saturday. Guys, let me know if we're having any audio feedback errors. So rely on you for some feedback. We'll give everybody a few minutes to join us. And as you can see from today's video, we're going to be talking about Omni and a Hellcat. He's facing federal prison. He's a big YouTuber. He's got over 800,000 subscribers. And it's a TV pirating conspiracy that he got part of that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. But we'll give everybody a few minutes to join in, chime in, let us know where you're calling from. If you're interested in a consultation with me and you'd like to find out more about how you can take advantage of our services, whether it be for personal narrative, character reference letters, if you want to do a free consultation, you can definitely do that. There's a link in the description of the video. And there's also a link that I just posted. There's a link in there for, it's got some information. We've got, if you want to send me a cup of coffee, you can do that as well. We got Car Chick turning in from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What's going on? We have, there you go. Hi, how you doing? And we have Oop Stopper. Says, I got my camera in front of my comments here. Says he might be done. She thinks his boy ratted. Well, I spoke to him. We'll call him Bill. That's his real name. I spoke to Bill. He reached out to, that's how I didn't even know about this case. Honestly, I don't know how I didn't hear about this, being he's a YouTuber and, you know, doing the big numbers he was doing, but he reached out to me, I guess about a week ago through Instagram. I didn't see the message right away. We spoke a couple of times. I think he was definitely slightly, maybe a little discombobulated from what his attorney told him to the plea deal, but he's looking at least based on the crime, what he pled guilty to, what the guidelines are, he's facing a lot of time. And I don't think he's even been told when he signed his plea deal. I don't think he saw an amount of time that he was pleading guilty to. I'm not sure if his attorney kind of misled him into a plea agreement, but I am confident that he's not cooperating. I can tell you that, just because I did get a chance to take a look at his pre-sentence report, and I did not see any cooperation in there. I did see an acceptance responsibility, which almost anybody with half of a brain cell would do. Taking advantage of acceptance responsibility gives you a departure from the guidelines. And they dropped a bunch of charges, but he still got hit with a slew of charges. I'm going to read through his charges here for you guys because I wrote them all down, and I'll tell you how much time the charges carry on their own. Now, he won't get sentenced. It's very, very unlikely for a judge to take the amount of charges he has in the amount of time each one of those charges could carry max. It's very unlikely that the judge would hit him with all of those. Whatever the sentence is going to be, it's going to run together. So it will be a consecutive sentence. So if he gets sentenced on 5 counts and each count carries 5 years or 10 years or whatever it might be, they're not going to give him 5 for each one of those. It would be a max amount of years and it would cover for all the charges. But the charges he pled guilty to, and I meant to pull up the actual conviction, but it's count 1 carries a maximum of 5 years. Count 2 carries a maximum of 5 years. Count 3 carries a maximum of 5 years. Count 4 carries a maximum of 1 year. Count 13 carries a maximum of 1 year. Count 18 carries a maximum of 1 year. Count 24 carries a maximum of 10 years. Count 29 carries a maximum of 20 years. Count 34 carries a maximum of 30 years. Count 47 carries a maximum of 10 years. Count 55 carries a maximum of 5 years. Count 62 carries a maximum of 5 years. So he pled guilty to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, to 12 different counts. And there was a bunch of counts that were dismissed, a whole slew of counts that were dismissed. Now, let me pull this up just so I can share this with you guys here. Let's go over here. Okay, so share this. So this is what has me concerned with what he was being told from his attorney. I don't know if he read through this or not. So there's a section on here, and this doesn't show any of his personal information on here, but there is a section on here, and if you read through it, it has down towards the bottom over here. if you look right in here, 100, so line item 132. So his total offense level is a 39. His criminal history is a category 3, and that carries a range of 324 to 405 months. So if you guys are curious, if you're like, man, how do they figure that out? There's something called, you've got what your federal sentencing guideline chart, which you can pull up on Google. So I'll pull this up for you guys to see it. Pull up any one of these that's big enough to view. Okay, let me make this bigger so you guys can see. Okay, now if we go back over here, we see again, this is after all of his plus and minuses, his acceptance of responsibility. His final level is a 39, and his criminal category is a 3, which means he's got a pretty extensive criminal category past. So if we go over to the sentencing guidelines, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for a base offense level 39, and we're going to go to the top where you have a criminal category 3, and then that should give us an idea. So 39, you guys see it right here, 39, and then up at the top, you'll see, I don't know if you can see that, up at the top, you've got your criminal category 3. So the line, across the top is your criminal history, down the side is your offense level. So if we go to a 39 category 3, as you can see right there, 39 level 3, 324 to 405 months. And that's exactly what they put in his for his sentencing recommendation on his pre-sentence report, 324 to 400 months. Guys, that's a long time. It's a long time, guys. Mortgages are what, 360 months, 30 years. So we're looking at, potentially a 30-year sentence if he's sentenced within the guideline range. Now, when I spoke to him, and I might be helping him out, I might be doing some consulting with him and helping him, depends on when he gets back to me or not. But he said his attorneys are working out something where right now they're offering him like 10 years and he's trying to get it down to like 3 to 5 years. I can tell you, with what he pled guilty to, if he walks away with a 3 to a 5 year prison sentence, I don't know. There's something going on behind closed doors there, because that doesn't happen. And those of you that have been wrapped up in any kind of a federal conspiracy or anything like that in the past, you would be aware that that doesn't happen unless you're cooperating, getting 5K1s. And from what I see in the pre-sentence report, now I'm not going to say he's not cooperating, because there's no way to know for sure, but he is in a conspiracy, and there's 2 other people in the conspiracy with him. We have, let's see here, Jesse Gonzales, who's part of his conspiracy, and a Michael Barone. Don't be a Barone. I feel like The Rock. Jabroni. Michael Barone. Those are his co-conspirators. Now, to say somebody told on him or snitched on him, there's no way to know. I mean, first off, what he was doing was crazy. He was basically pirating cable on, we've all done it probably, right? We've all been to a website where we downloaded a movie for free or whatever, but he was charging subscriptions he had a bunch of different, he had to keep changing names to stay out of the radar. And if you guys Google the companies that he had, let's see here, we had, here it is. We had Reboot. These are the names of his channel, his subscription channel that he was charging his subscriptions for. We had Reboot, and then he changed it to Reloader, and then we had Gear TV, then we had Gears Reloaded. What the government's saying is they seized $41 million in assets, 52 properties, and 57 vehicles. We're talking Bentleys, Lambos, of course. He's got his notorious Hellcats. I'm sure they got a few of those. In my opinion, he's facing a lot more time than what he thinks. And he's openly spoke about maybe abusing alcohol a little bit here and there, and he said he did go over it with probation, but in his report it's not mentioned. So programs like RDAP are going to be real hard taking advantage of these things. Now, he has taken accountability, did it on his YouTube channel. I don't know what kind of letters he's preparing, kind of personal narratives, but he's got sentencing coming up the beginning of next month. I think it's the 7th or 5th of March. So yeah, sentencing coming up, and I don't know if sentencing is. It might very likely get postponed because as of now, they're still trying to negotiate whatever this plea deal is going to be doing. He said he's signing he's signing what's called a C plea. A C plea is where it's a binding plea agreement. So whatever the plea agreement is, whatever you sign to, that's what it is. The typical plea agreements, like I showed you guys, his guideline range is 324 months to 405 months. Those are advisory guidelines. He didn't have a minimum mandatory in this situation. So basically, the judge could give him any kind of sentence he wants if he was doing a regular plea deal, pleading within the guideline range. With a C plea, the judge's hands are kind of tied. The judge agrees to it. Everybody agrees to it. That's why, I don't know how he's going to get a 5 to a 10-year plea deal where it's a C plea where the judge agrees to that. Even if you were to pay back all the money and give everything back, the problem is the guidelines are still the guidelines, and they set precedents. If he were to get a reduced sentence without some sort of a substantial cooperation, 5K1, cooperating against others, that's really the only way I can see how you would get such a massive departure. They also, what's called Rule 35s, where you bring them information on other individuals that maybe are not a part of your case, but maybe somebody else that's doing something similar, and you bring that to the government, and the government's able to get a grand jury to indict and bring charges. Somebody pleads guilty. That could give you additional reductions, which could make sense to get it down to a 5 to a 10-year bid. But it's not, from what I've seen and everybody that I've dealt with, it's not very likely. He did tell me he was having some, issues with his attorney, with just maybe not explaining things the best. So I don't know how in the dark he is. He's got every right to feel terrified and nervous, anxiety, all of that. He described that in one of his videos. If there's a video, and I'll share it, I'll show you guys. I don't want to get my channel demonetized here, but let's see here. I think it's this one. If you guys Google, if you go on YouTube and just look up Omni and a Hellcat, the day they came, they actually have his girlfriend, I think, recorded it. She did a live video. It's a really poor quality video. Videos in and out, but they got a video of when the cops came, basically the day they arrested him, and took all the vehicles, drove all the vehicles off the compound. Initially he was declaring his innocence, and I have a hard time believing. I don't think anybody wouldn't. I mean, I understand he thinks there was a loophole in the law, but I still think at the end of the day, if I'm buying cable, if I'm paying for, let's say, HBO, and I'm streaming that, or I'm hooking that up to a device and I'm streaming that and giving it to others, A, you're not supposed to distribute to others, and B, you're charging a monthly membership fee. He made $30 million in membership fees. The guy is brilliant. I am very confident whatever he's going to do next is going to be big. There is a lawsuit. Right? I don't know if it's still ongoing, but you guys, I don't know if you know, but he has his own shoes. And he's getting sued by Nike because he basically, Nike saying he's making knockoffs off their brand. Granted, he's got a lightning bolt versus a swoosh, but the shoes do look very, very close to Nike. And he did this with a bunch of shoes. And this guy, when I tell you, selling shoes like hotcakes, man, just pallets and pallets of shoes. People are buying them. The guy is not dumb. He's a very, very smart individual. And, when you grew up a rough lifestyle, I'm not saying it's a reason to do what he might have done or what he pled guilty to. But I can tell you, guys, when you grow up not really having anything and you catch a little hustle, that could be all she wrote, his life. Let's see. So he was born September 8th, 1996 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He was born to father Julio Carrasquillo. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Carrasquillo, and his mother Soledad Diaz. Apparently, he had a good relationship with his father, and his father is still alive. I believe his father's in his 80s, so I think his dad is still around. His dad was around 55 years old when he was born. His mother, I believe, took a prison sentence at a very young age. Let's see here. His dad, get this, his dad, 38 kids. His dad has 38 children. So, yeah, Omi's one of 38 kids. His mother, 10 kids, 4 with Julio. He has 44 brothers and sisters. That is a big family. That's like a herd. That's like you guys could just populate Pennsylvania. It could be like, you get your compound. Yeah, that's a herd. His sister was sent to prison. Oh, his sister was sent to prison for 25 to life for drugs. And I believe his mother died in prison when he was 10 years old, if I read that correctly. So, he's been in and out of, I believe, some group homes. He's had an upbringing that many of us are more fortunate to not experience. So I'm sure, for him, certain things were it was probably normal to do certain activities, certain behaviors. And he has taken complete accountability. He's posted some videos on his YouTube channel. He's very accountable for what he's done. He understands that the amount of money that goes in to producing TV, producing movies, getting it out there, advertising, all of this, that to do what he was doing is taking mega money off of the table of the production companies that are producing this. So I do believe that he is extremely sorry for what he did. But that doesn't absolve you. Even if he thought he was within a gray area or within a loophole of the law, if he would have been doing this and giving the TV away for free, he probably still would have gotten in trouble, because that's revenue that companies are losing because they're not getting subscriptions. But the fact that he was charging a premium on top of that, that's huge. And the guy's got an awesome YouTube channel, 800,000 subscribers. So I imagine if he keeps that YouTube channel going, he may not make the millions on top of millions that he was making doing the illegal pirating. Arg, Mitty, pirate Omi here. Should Omi, called you Omi. That's my best friend's fiance's name. Omi, I dressed up like a prisoner when I went into prison. You should definitely dress up like a pirate on the day you saw surrenders, walking in with like a peg leg, a patch, a pirate hat, maybe a little parrot up on your shoulder. But I don't think he's gonna have a hard time in prison, especially if everything that I'm seeing is correct. If he's not cooperating, I know he wanted to try to get to a camp. I don't think he's going to get to a camp. I don't even think he's going to get to a low. He's got some prior convictions. He's got a little bit of a past. There's a little bit of violence in there, some drug convictions. I don't know if there's any gun convictions in there, but I'm pretty sure I did see some violent charges in his past, and that's going to prevent him from going to a camp. If he does get this giant chunk of change, if he gets like 20, 30-year sentence, he'll go to a medium. He won't be able to go to a low. In order to go to a low security federal prison, you have to have 20 years or less remaining. So if they sentenced him to, let's say, 21 or 22 years minus his good time, then yes, he would still be eligible for a low security prison. But it's very likely that he'll start off at a medium. That's why it's all that much more important that if you are watching this, my man, and you are considering, I don't judge anybody if they're going to cooperate. If you're going to do a 5K and you're going to cooperate, I get it. I'm not judging you for it. Other people will, but it's always easier to judge people when you're not in their shoes. Everybody says, "Oh man, I would never tell." I can tell you there are a few legitimate OGs out there that wouldn't tell, but I can tell you firsthand experience, not just from the clients that I've had, but from my own experience in prison. And the vast majority of individuals will tell. The only people that I've seen that probably won't tell, cooperate, or give the government information they're looking for are if your life is in danger, like maybe you were doing some kind of running or smuggling for the cartel. If your life is in danger, your family's life is in danger, or you just don't have anything to tell. Like maybe you were the last one standing. They got you. They already had everybody else. There's nothing else you could say. That's usually the only times we don't see somebody fully cooperate to the extent. Everybody else is just, mindful warriors where they relive these dreams in their head about, I would never snitch on anybody. Snitches get stitches. Most of you that are saying that, you would tell. You'd probably tell on your own mother, to be honest. And some of you, if you're looking at such a chunk of time, you take somebody that's got a family, you got kids, and they're looking at if they don't take a plea deal and they go to trial, and if they were to lose, for some people, that could be 20, 30, 40 years versus where they offer you a plea agreement and that could reduce charges. You could be looking at 3 to 5 years. So, And many people say, well, they should have thought about that before they committed the crime. Well, no shit. Should have thought about a lot of things before they committed the crime. They wouldn't be in the situation they were in. But the majority of people end up cooperating. They 5Ks, acceptance responsibility, Rule 35s. It's just the nature of the beast. The government, that's really how they get most of their lump hits, where they round up all these people. It's not because of massive investigative work. It's not because you have these amazing journalists running around, FBI doing all kinds of work. What it is they rope somebody in, they get somebody, and they say, hey, tell us what we need to hear. Maybe we'll cut you a break. And everybody starts talking almost immediately. It's like diarrhea of the mouth. And it's important for somebody. Now, if you're going to be going to a camp or a low security prison, that's not a big deal if you cooperate. I mean, it might be a big deal to people watching, but for yourself, you're not going to be in any danger at a camp or a low security federal prison. But if you're going to go to a medium or a penitentiary potentially, and you have cooperation, you've got 5K or sex offense crimes, things like that, that will definitely affect what type of time you're going to do, because the inmates are going to find out. They're going to ask you for your paperwork. If you try to hide it, you try to manipulate it, you try to say you don't have it, you try to forge it. Pacer, you can go on Pacer and look stuff up. You've got people's indictments on Pacer, and you can always tell. Like if somebody's crime, you've like, for example, what his crime is right now. He's facing, what was the time and the amount of time here? We said he's facing 324 to 405 months. If he gets to prison, he's like, I only got 5 years. They're going to want to know, how did you go from 300 months, 400 months to 5 years to 60 months? Like that doesn't make sense to the average person, because it doesn't make sense. There's no way you can do that without some swinging hammers somewhere, dropping on names. You got to be doing something to get that kind of a departure. Even when you pay fines, like there's people that are like, what if I go, especially with like we see a lot of PPP fraud, the payment protection program fraud. And some of these guys defrauded for, hundreds of thousands or millions. We got clients that paid it back before they were even in trouble, before they even got indicted, before there was an investigation. They kind of maybe thought something could come down the road. They knew that they got it through ill-gotten gains, so they went and paid it back. And then the government still comes after you. You still get hit. You're still looking at the time. You're just not going to owe the restitution because you paid it back, but you still committed the crime, and your guidelines are still going to be based on the money that was taken, even though you gave it back. So you can't just go steal and then ask for repentance because you paid it back. You're still going to pay the time. You're still going to go to prison based on what those guidelines would be. So that's why in his situation, it's very interesting to wonder how he thinks they're going to get such a good plea deal. And I don't honestly know if he's really seen anything. I think his attorney might just be telling him. I've had clients in the past, very recently, and it's very unfortunate when they're looking at a lot of time. And even with the plea deal, a lot of these people, like, I can get going to trial. If you're facing 30 or 40 years with a plea deal and you're going to trial, and you might be facing 40, 50, 60 years, I don't know. That's a tough one, because it's easy to take a plea deal when you're looking at 20 years, and a plea deal potentially could potentially, oh man, comments just shot in fast. Sorry, just now seeing those. A plea deal could potentially take a 15, 20-year sentence and chop it up to 3 to 5 years. That's a no-brainer. But when you're looking at a plea deal, it's still carrying 20, 30 years. You might be a lot more likely to want to potentially go to trial, because I don't know many people that are just going to take that lane down. Let's read some of these comments. These comments just all flew in. Like Juan said, hit that like button, everybody. Hey, Mike, how are you doing, my man? There's one of our clients. Let's see here. One of the guys got sentenced to 14 months. Was it one of the names that I mentioned in the conspiracy? Julio. I'm sorry, not Julio. Was it Jesse Gonzalez or I know one of the guys actually left the business. One of the guys, I think it was the other guy, Michael Carbone or what's his name again? His name was Michael Barone. The jabroni. Michael Barone, from what I was reading, I believe he left the conspiracy. He got out of it before everything came down. So he left the conspiracy. He left the business. before everything happened. So he was able to show that he tried to separate himself from this, but he still got hit. So I'm wondering if that's the guy that got sentenced. We can do a lookup here in a few minutes. Let's see here. Juan saying conspiracy is mandatory 5 years. Juan, not necessarily. You're thinking maybe conspiracy for your case. Juan was an old client of mine who was facing a 5-year sentence. We actually got probation for, so you're welcome, Juan. But Juan was a drug conspiracy case. This is not a drug conspiracy case. This is a money conspiracy case. There's no minimum mandatory on his, Juan. And let's see. Michael says, so this man pretty much committed fraud. Pretty much. I'd say pretty much that's fair. Talk about him. I know they repoed all of his cars. I don't want to play the video because it's not my YouTube video, and YouTube is notorious for demonetizing and striking and just making me really angry. So we're not going to show the video. But if you go Google him, Ami in a Hellcat, one of the first videos on it, if you just do Ami and a Hellcat arrested, you'll see the bust at his house. I think it was his girlfriend recorded the whole thing. And he was very calm and collected about it. It was, for him, it's like, and that's almost a sad thing, right? A lot of individuals, not sad to him, sad with upbringing, sad with cognitions, what people get accustomed to in their lifestyles. Like the cops came, it sucked, it ruined his day, but he didn't freak out like a lot of other people potentially would have. He kept his cool pretty good, not gonna lie. His family is annoying. Yes, his family. He's got more brother and sisters than I think I have in my entire fucking family tree. Michael, can't do the crime, don't do the time, or can't do the time, don't do the crime. That's a statement that is loosely thrown around. And yes, it's probably the most true statement. But a lot of people, I think, when they get into the life of crime, they don't wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to start a master conspiracy ring here. I think it just kind of happened. Maybe you're doing this, you're doing that. Before you know it, it's out of control. And maybe you don't know how to stop at that point. How do you pump the brakes? One of the things he said in an interview with Fox, I think it was Fox. Let me see if we have that up here. Hold. Mouse. All right, let's see. Okay, this one we can show because this is Fox. So let's blow this bad boy up. So this was an interview he did. This was right after the raid. This is them coming to his house. Hold on, let's pop it up.
Do we mind if we do a quick one?
What's going on?
So,
sorry, I'm
yeah, you want to put that down? Yeah.
I wish I had one of those. That's a nice little track.
So, tell me what happened yesterday.
Yeah,
the FBI came in
for the first time. The first time you guys came here, everybody said that it was bullcrap.
Right. So, just tell me what happened.
Nothing. They just came in.
Now, this is an old video, guys.
They ran straight up to the ring.
This is prior to him pleading guilty.
So we can see, but obviously there's about 30 cameras around the whole premises. So they came back for the things that they alleged that I did, the copyright infringement, which, I don't think I ever did anything wrong. Obviously, I was running businesses wide open in the public. So now we just got to see. We're going to have our day in court now. So finally, I get to not be depressed, not be stressed out anymore. Now I get my day in court.
Was this arrest a relief for you?
It was 100% of relief because I didn't know what was going on for 2 years. No answers, no nothing. Depressed. A lot of depression comes behind this. They don't know, man. When they do things like this, they take people's livelihoods. So this is sort of a big relief for me. Obviously.
You look like you're doing pretty good.
Oh, and look, they said that everything that I've done was criminally.
I'm going to stop in case the government's watching because he did take full accountability. So I don't want them to look at this and think it's like a recent video.
And back again, we're back to flourishing.
But if the takeaway, guys, what he said, I can't be more true. The amount of anxiety, sleepless nights, when you're under some sort of investigation and you're waiting for the hammer to drop, just waiting. It's like you can't relax. You can't enjoy your you can't enjoy your day. He's got that big, giant, beautiful house with cars. I guess there's still a few cars there. But the thing is you can't enjoy it because the shitstorm is coming behind it. And so when he's saying that, I can only imagine. I know what it felt like for me to know once you kind of had some clarity of what was going to happen next. And when I got sentenced to 42 months felt like the end of the world at the time for, not really ever being in any real trouble before. 42 months is like, oh my God, how am I going to do 42 months? In a situation like his, he would be doing backflips right now for 42 months. Because with 42 months, with the right programming, I mean, he could be out in 10, 11 months on a 42-month sentence. The problem is I think there was a little bit of false expectation given to him from his attorneys, unless there's something he's not telling me. But for him to think that such a large amount of money loss is somehow going to equate to a 5 to 10 year sentence, there's just no way that could happen unless they came way down on the money, way down. Or there was some, behind closed doors, dropping some names. That's the only way that can really happen. Let's see what we got here. We got intellectual property infringement shouldn't be punished in criminal court. The problem is it's not just intellectual property. He actually was creating memberships. You've got cable companies that own the rights to whatever it's copyright law more than intellectual property. It's the copyright laws, the money, not paying his taxes. There's, I think, $6 million owed in taxes. There's a lot of things counting against him. But when you're pirating other people's, if you're stealing from HBO, from all these cable companies, and you're creating memberships and you're giving it to people and you're charging people for those memberships, it's 100%. It should be punished in a court of law. Or else you're going to have a free for all. What would be the point in putting out content if somebody could just legally steal it and be no punishment? So I get what you're saying, but I disagree slightly with the term. I do think I talk to a lot of people. I get consultations, on the daily. Speaking of, if anybody's facing any type of federal prison or you're under criminal investigation, if you want a consultation, there's a link in the description. You'll see my little link tree in there. Free consultation. There's also a paid consultation if you want to do like a full document review. If you want me to log into your Pacer, if you want to pull up your complaints, if you want me to pull up your indictments, if you want me to read through your pre-sentence report, if you want me to do calculations, then yeah, there'd be a fee for that. But if you want to do a free consultation, a 15-minute consultation, we can give you some free info, some gold nuggets. And the worst case scenario is you're going to end the call with a lot more knowledge than you have right now, being better off in a situation. Let's see here. Go back to some of these questions. I'd move to a different country if I was in his position before charges were filed. The problem is you've got a family, you've got kids, you've got a wife. Again, a lot of people say that. Chances are, once he was under investigation, he was probably being watched. He was probably on a no-fly list. He probably potentially was asked to self-surrender his passport. So fleeing the country, and most countries, depending on the situation, will extradite. And do you really want to sure, flee if you want to, but when you're leaving behind your family, you're never really going to be able to see them again. Unless you watch one too many movies and you're going to change your identity and you're going to get face what is it? Facial reconstruction, whatever. It's like surgery. So yeah, fleeing is harder than it sounds. And in some cases, we tend to think money can buy us out of a situation. I'm sure he's paid a very, very, very pretty penny for his criminal defense. And that might be why his criminal defense seems to have left him in the dark just a wee bit. He should know. When I started asking him things about well, what did you see in writing that you were going to get, 10-year max? And he said, oh, I didn't see anything in writing. I was like, dude, if I don't see it in writing, so you signed a plea agreement, you haven't seen anything in writing, you signed a plea agreement, and your pre-sentence report shows what your guidelines are. Nowhere in that pre-sentence report does it say that we have a plea agreement stating that we're going to cap this at 10 years. That baffles me. And that goes to show how much trust we put in our attorneys. I'm not going to blame him for that. he was putting his trust in his attorneys. This is a very, very stressful time that people go through, and you tend to want to think you can rely on your attorney. And most of you always tell me the same thing. You feel like your attorney is working for the prosecutor. They never take your calls. They feel frustrated every time you talk to them. They get aggravated with your questions. I mean, you're facing a prison sentence. You should be able to ask your attorney anything you want. Now, I get it. Post-conviction stuff, once a client's convicted, once they plead guilty, a lot of attorneys aren't going to have a wealth of information when it comes to like RDAP, First Step Act, personal narratives, prepping for the pre-sentence report. Many attorneys won't be prepared to give you this information. And instead of telling you, I don't know, they'll try to give you information, and that's usually wrong or misleading. I'm firmly convinced that his criminal history is a category 3. So from a 0 to 3, 0 being no criminal history to a 3 being you've got some decent criminal history within the last 10 to 15 years. That criminal history is because some of it is considered violent. I don't see how he's going to make it to a camp or a low. Going to a medium, he'll have no problems at a medium. He's a big enough dude. Seems like he gets along. Seems like he understands like the politic, what time it is. But if he's got cooperation, and if he thinks they're not going to find out in a medium, that's where your thinking goes wrong, because your attorney will say things like, oh, you're not allowed to have your pre-sentence report in prison. Yeah, of course you're not allowed to have it, but inmates have their own set of rules in politic. And if you've cooperated, they're going to find out, especially you've got inmates in there that just, they're way too smart, way too keen on mannerisms, on the type of sentence you received. If you receive a short sentence and you're at a medium, and a lot of guys, when they've done cooperation and stuff and people start asking them questions, you'll notice they try to like get off the subject real fast. Like, well, this and this, and they move on. People that have nothing to hide, they go in and like, oh man, this happened. I was doing this. It's much more of an engaging conversation. And when individuals try to cut it short, when they, not looking at you in the eyes, and you start lying to their inmates, it only takes one call to the outside saying, hey, look this guy up. They might have a friend that's an attorney. Anybody can get access to Pacer. And when you start seeing sealed, indictment sealed, plea agreement sealed, those are signs in my mind, if I was to go look up somebody and everything was sealed, now usually the pre-sentence report is always going to be sealed, but usually the indictment's not sealed. Usually the plea agreement's not sealed. Things like that are not sealed. So when those are sealed, it's usually because there's heavy cooperation involved and they're sealing it to try to protect the individual, but it's not really protecting them. It's just not. The inmates are not dumb. So, Ami, I say be very, very careful. The road you're walking down, you're facing a dump load of time. I can't imagine going through what you're going through right now. I was facing, decent amount of time on my own charges, but yours is like, it's like, damn, it's just, and it's a public, they've made a big, media has been all over this in your hometown. So just be prepared, man. Don't get caught slipping. Don't get caught with your hands down. And if you are taking a plea deal, I would be real interested in knowing that you're putting in the work to find out what you're signing. If you're going to sign a C plea, I get it. A C plea might be in your best interest, but where in writing does it say that this is what you're going to get, or this is the most that you could get? Until you see that, just don't assume it. I would assume what's on your pre-sentence report is more likely with the guidelines of what you're facing. Just because it's also so public that the last thing the government wants to do and the last thing the courts want to do is give you a slap on the wrist, setting a precedent that other individuals can go out there and, in the tune of, how much do we say it was again? $41 million, in the tune of $41 million, give or take, up or down. I think the last message the courts want to send is you can go steal $41 million and we're only going to give you a couple of years. Sign me up, RDAP Dan. I want to voluntarily self-surrender back to prison. I will take 5 years, 5 million for every 5 years. So you want to give me 5 years, 5 million, 10 years, I'll take 10 million. Where do I sign up to do that? I would take it in a heartbeat. 5 years in the feds, in a camp or a low security prison, no big deal. But with the situation of what you're facing, it's probably going to be the best case scenario, a low, potentially medium. And if you've got cooperation, you've got anything, you're going to want to worry about that, and definitely reach out to me, because if you are going to be doing any kind of a plea deal that has cooperation, my advice is let's look at prisons that are low on the politic totem pole. From Canada. Hi, Canada. Every time I hear Canada, I can't help but think of South Park. South Park has made me respect Canada so much more. Canada's got their shit together. Canada, everybody loves everybody. Nobody's shooting nobody in Canada. You can't have guns in Canada, but everybody loves everybody in Canada. So what's going on, Toronto? Julie La Rosa. Nice for you to join. Guys, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, do so. In the link I dropped right here, if you found this content interesting or valuable or helpful or even worthless, if you found it worthless and you want to let me know, there's a link in there where you can tip me for a cup of coffee, Starbucks. Yeah, Michael, you're not too far from me. I'm in Melbourne, Florida. But also in that, in my link tree, it's in the live chat. It's also in the description. You can book your consultation from there as well. It brings you to our website. From our website, you'll book your consultation time. It'll answer some questions about, if you're under investigation, if it's for you, it's for a loved one. Some basic info. Then it'll prompt you to our calendar, put you on our handy dandy calendar, and we'll get you on a free 15-minute consultation. And we can go over anything from what you need to do to qualify for RDAP, what you should be telling your kids. If you're interested in anything prison related to better prepare, not everyone says you're a prison consultant. So do you tell people how not to get beat up and how to get shanked in prison? No, we don't deal in any of that. I wish it was that entertaining. We specialize in personal narratives, letters to the judge, prepping for the pre-sentence report, substance abuse evaluations, like in his case, in our subject matter today. According to what he told me, he should be able to qualify for RDAP, but during the pre-sentence interview, there was information either he didn't disclose or the RDAP or the probation officer left it out, and that creates issues. So being prepared for that pre-sentence interview, because RDAP can knock an entire year off your sentence. So people, they want to get into RDAP, obviously, to get a year off. RDAP is not easy by any means. It's a very, very intense program. Cognitive behavior therapy program. It's 10 months long. You take it while you're in prison. It's in a special unit within the prison. Every inmate that's in that unit specifically, every one of them is in the program. You're holding each other accountable. You're doing morning meetings. You're forced to tell on each other, to hold each other, to practice humility and healthy lifestyle. So when you get out back in the free world, let's take RDAP Dan Wise, if I were to, let's say I was hanging out, we met a group of people, we're out having drinks, and it's like, oh, meet my friend Bob, this is Dan, we're all going to go in the same place. Bob gets in my car. Bob's either got drugs on or Bob's got a gun on him. Maybe we get pulled over. And next thing I know, Bob throws his gun on the floor. Cops pull us over. Whose gun is it? Bob doesn't take responsibility. Dan's a convicted felon now in possession of a firearm. That's a big deal. So being able to hold people accountable and say, hey, I'm not going to get in the car with you if you've got a gun. And if you're living any kind of shady lifestyle, don't do it around me, because if the cops come and knocking, I got a 5K tattoo, 5K1 tattoo on my neck somewhere, right? I'm just kidding. But I'm not taking the blame for nobody. I'm not committing no crimes. And if somebody else is committing the crime, don't do it around Dan, because Dan's going to tell on you. Dan's not going to keep your secret and potentially go down on a sinking ship because, you think there's honor amongst thieves and criminals. There's just typically not. Bike week. Oh yeah, Daytona. I'm not a big biker. I have a scooter. I have a Vespa, which is a lot of fun. I call it my Piglet because, Harley riders call their bikes their hogs. So I've got a Piglet. I've got an SUV. That's what I drive. That's my daily. But we have scooters that we like to drive on the weekends over by the water. Canada. There's Juan. Juan's always somewhere. He's probably in Costa Rica right now. But yeah, you guys got any last minute questions for me? Anything you want to talk about? If not, jump on our link. Send me a cup of coffee. Help us cover the cost for some of this research. milking you guys dry. It's 2023, tough times on the ahead of us, guys. So, I'll take the $5 donations. Let's see what we got here. Funny how people who commit crime never have a backup plan for when they're discovered. I'd rather have citizenship in another country, private aircraft to get me out. You've watched too many movies, my man. It doesn't really work that way, because by the time you realize, I honestly think he thought he wasn't doing anything wrong. And this happens a lot of the times to individuals that are raised a certain way and they're accustomed to living a certain lifestyle where you live in the gray area. And with the feds, there is no gray. If the feds want you, they kind of make it impossible. So I get what you're saying. If you're going to go commit a crime and you've got like a mastermind plan, you're like, all right, here's my 5-year plan. Year 1, I'm going to set up a bunch of accounts. Year 2, I'm going to get a bunch of burner phones. Year 3, I'm going to start my marketing, bringing in money. And at the same time, I'm going to have, a passport. I'm going to have money in another account. I'm going to have all this set up. If you're really going to commit the crime the right way, sure, that might work. But in the real world, this just doesn't really apply. That's like Ocean's 11 type stuff, or Ocean's 12, 13. I don't know, Ocean's 99. They've made a bunch of them now. It just doesn't work that way. And you go on the run. Going on the run is not fun either, because you can't call your kids. You can't call your family. Basically, you're making it too cut and dry. It's not so black and white as that. There's a lot of gray area to go on the run. We do have a client. Well, he wasn't our client. One of my clients, you actually probably saw their videos a while back, Ryan and Kimmy. They were a conspiracy out of Washington. It was big insurance fraud scams where there was like 30, 40 people involved. There would be staged accidents, a car accident where the driver was in on it. The person that was driving the vehicle that hit the other vehicle was in on it. They would have the driver of the car take certain pills so their eyes would dilate. They'd have a little bottle of like urine on them, so they would spray urine on themselves. So it looks like they lost their marbles when they got hit. They would, prior to the accident, the main guy, his name was Uncle Bill. That's what they called him. That was his stage name. Uncle Bill would walk around in a shirt and tie and a briefcase. When we pop open his briefcase, he had razor knives, bricks, concrete, sandpaper. So prior to the accident, he would get in your car with you. He would sandpaper your face, cut it with a razor, put some drops in your eyes to dilate them, give you some medicine to show, for blood thinning, and then cut your face. You get in the car accident and it looks like all the damage happened from the car accident. They would know exactly what type of insurance policy you have prior to getting in the car, so they would know how to go after your insurance. They might put 2 or 3 other people in the car. Each one of those persons is entitled to X amount of money. So then Uncle Bill would take the majority of the money and he would pay you whatever, $5,000 for getting in the car. This went on for quite a while. Well, my clients, Ryan and Kimmy, they were part of this, and Uncle Bill got arrested, got indicted, he was released on pretrial services, but the motherfucker flew the coop. He left his family high and dry. His wife went to prison. His son went to prison. And if he would have came back, they wouldn't have gone to prison. And they still haven't found him. He hasn't come home yet. So that's probably what you're talking about. But that's, and to me, that's even worse. When you're going to let your family take the rap for you, you're going to let your kid and your wife go to prison. That's the devil. The devil got in Bill. He was definitely raped by the devil, and the devil's spirit lives inside of Bill. But everybody else that got in trouble on that case, they've all done their time in their home. Bill's still in hiding somewhere. I doubt he's living on some like magical island dripping martinis. He's probably living in some fucking shithole cave like Osama bin Laden, hiding somewhere, and wishes he had just come and faced the music, because now he'll get the max. If they ever do catch him, he's probably going to rot and die in prison. So you got to really weigh out the pros and cons, and Omi, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. He's under the impression that he might only get 5 to 10 years because of what his attorney told him. And that might very well be true. And if it is true, there's just some other things that were not disclosed to RDAP Dan. But if he did tell me, I wouldn't be talking about it. But because he told me he did not cooperate, I'm confident in regurgitating what he said. But I'll still, call a spade a spade. If he gets a 5-year sentence with what he's facing, with those charges, He's got a beautiful singing voice. That's all I can say. All right, guys, that's about it I got on this video today. Definitely go check out his YouTube channel. Here, let's drop a link to. You guys are probably all here from his YouTube channel. I don't need to tell you to get his channel, but I'll do it. Do it anyway. To promote the man. I like his stuff. I like his content. Here's his channel. Boom. There you go. Let's see what we got here. Bernie Madoff didn't have an exit plan. He would have, because Bernie Madoff did it for so long. He didn't think he was ever going to get caught. He thought he was just too smart, too big to fail. And once you're somebody like Bernie Madoff, the amount of respect and the clout you have I think for him it was more about power and connections and people liking him than it was about the actual money. You know, for a lot of criminals, that's what it comes down to. It's positions of power. You get somebody like pain clinics. You got a lot of these office managers in pain clinics. They just like the power. They like being able to tell people what to do. Everyone's so subservient to you. That was my job. I was a managing person of a pain clinic in 2011. That's how I caught my indictment. But when I got indicted, when they came down, I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. I just worked there. Even if I can somehow justify to myself that I technically didn't break any law, I will tell you that I indirectly assisted to probably the death and collapse of so many families by working at a pain clinic that was distributing pills to people. We were hiding under the scope of the law. We were writing prescriptions. People were driving from Kentucky and Ohio and Connecticut to come see this doctor. I could say, yes, we're all within the scope of the law. But at the end of the day, I knew behind closed doors, those drugs were getting back to the street. Parents were using them, overdosing. Kids were getting a hold of them, probably dying, selling them on the street. Who knows the ripple effect that I contributed to through my own greed, just wanting to turn a blind eye. So, you know, for some people, you don't make full circle for a while. So the situation Ummy's in, he's coming to the realization. He's working through his plea agreements now. And is he taking a plea deal just because, or is he taking a plea deal because he thinks he's guilty? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. He's taking the plea deal. He's admitting guilt. He's not dragging it out. And I'm sure the more he goes through this process and the more he sees the impact that this is having and how he could use his image for good, he could touch lives. He's got 800,000 subscribers on his channel. He could very easily use the situation that he was in to talk to youth and reach out to them, because there's a lot of kids that look up to anybody that's got a YouTube channel, especially a dude that's got that many followers and he's showing cool cars and he's flashing money and buying, you know, kick-ass stuff all the time. He's got a following that if he uses his value correctly, he could help people make better decisions, make sure they don't follow the same footsteps that he did. And I don't think he's ever used the excuse of his upbringing, but a lot of people will say, oh, I wasn't hugged enough as a kid, or my parents were in and out of prison my entire life, or I was in and out of foster homes my entire life. I was molested as a kid. You know, all of these reasons why people blame the circumstances and they play the victim role. Just because you had a rough life doesn't justify why you're making the mistakes that you're making now. Those are just excuses so you don't have to take accountability for fucking your life up. And that was hardest thing for me, was to take full accountability. And, you know, just because I grew up, you know, poor, I didn't have parents around, I could have used those reasons. And I did use those reasons for a long time. But once I stopped playing the victim and I was like, man, I'm my own biggest enemy, my own biggest nightmare. You know, I can't get them out of my own way. When I stopped making those excuses, man, everything started to turn around. And I really found this like sense of purpose, this value. And that's what kind of started the prison consulting thing on top of it. So I'll tell you, when you do the right thing for the right reasons, everything somehow finds a way of making it to where it should go. It's when you try to take shortcuts and you try to take the elevator instead of the stairs. It's when you make those mistakes and you know you're doing it, but you think you can fix it later on down the road. You create too many holes, too much wear and tear on the vehicle you're driving, and before you know it, the whole thing's just falling apart. Brand new tires aren't going to fix it. Brand new engine's no good. The whole thing's fucking shot. Just drop it off. It's a boat anchor. So if he gets to that point, I think he's got the platform to be a force to reckon with. So keep it going. Life is what you make of it. Well said. Well said. All right, guys, I'm going to roll out here for real this time. Thank you guys for joining, and I'll do an update. He gets sentenced next week. I have a feeling it's going to get pushed off because I don't think his plea deal's completely finalized yet. But we'll do an update next week, let you know where he's at, what's going on. And if he does reach back out to me, he did say he was going to do some videos with me, which would be super fun. But if he doesn't, I get it. I'm sure he's stressed out beyond belief. But there's a lot of support we can help him with on our side, what we do as a company. And I really do hope the best for him. I hope he does not get the type of time that he's looking at. I don't think he deserves that kind of time. I just hope that his attorney gave him realistic information so he's not blindsided. And if he is blindsided, shame on you, Mr. Attorney, because that's some dirty, dirty, dirty pool. All right, guys. RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting, people helping people, communities method, one day at a time. See you guys next week. Peace. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'm out of here.